The stars were dying, one by one. Admiral Taemin stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching another solar system vanish from the tactical display. The red dots that marked the void swarm had consumed 3 more worlds in the past week. Soon, they would reach the core systems where billions of innocent beings lived and worked, unaware that death was coming for them. "Sir, we've lost contact with the 7th Fleet," reported his communications officer, her voice shaking. "The swarm has taken the Keltara system." Taemin closed his eyes. The 7th Fleet had been their strongest force, equipped with the most advanced weapons the Coalition could build. If they couldn't stop the swarm, nothing could. The alien creatures didn't negotiate, didn't show mercy, and didn't stop. They just consumed everything in their path like a plague of living ships. For 3 years, the Galactic Coalition had fought against the Void Swarm. Every species had contributed their best technology and bravest soldiers. The peaceful Althari had shared their energy shields. The wise Korthans had given their quantum computers. The strong Valdric had sent their mighty battle cruisers. None of it had been enough. The swarm ships were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They were alive, growing and healing themselves during battle. Their weapons could drain the energy from Coalition ships, leaving them helpless in space. Worst of all, they seemed to learn from every fight, becoming stronger and smarter with each victory. "Admiral," said his tactical officer, "we're receiving a message from the High Council. They want to speak with you immediately." Taemin walked to his private chamber and activated the communication system. The holographic images of the council members appeared before him, their faces showing the weight of desperation. These beings had once ruled a galaxy of peace and prosperity. Now they looked like frightened children. "Admiral Taemin," spoke Council Leader Zephon, her blue skin pale with worry, "we have made a decision that goes against everything we believe. We must contact the humans." Taemin felt his heart sink. The humans were a young species from the outer edge of the galaxy. They had been banned from Coalition space 50 years ago because of their violent nature. While other species had evolved beyond war, humans still fought each other over small disagreements. They built weapons instead of art, armies instead of libraries. The humans, my lady, but they are barbarians. They know nothing of advanced technology or civilized warfare. They know how to fight, Admiral. They know how to win wars. And right now, that is all that matters. The council leader was right, though it pained Taemin to admit it. While the Coalition had spent centuries perfecting peaceful solutions, the humans had spent their time perfecting the art of war. They had fought thousands of battles on their homeworld before reaching the stars. Even after leaving Earth, they continued to fight small conflicts with pirates and raiders. "Send the message to their fleet commanders," ordered Zephon. "Tell them we need their help. Tell them we will give them full membership in the Coalition if they can save us." 3 days later, Captain Hansol received the transmission on his ship, the Defiant Dawn. He was a weathered man with scars on his face from battles the Coalition had never heard of. His crew was a mix of soldiers and outcasts who had chosen the dangerous life of frontier defense. Hansol read the message twice before believing it. The same aliens who had called humans a threat to galactic peace were now begging for their help. The irony was not lost on him, but neither was the opportunity. "Contact Fleet Command," he told his communications officer. "Tell them the Coalition wants to talk." Within hours, the message reached Earth and the outer colonies. Fleet Commander Ye Jin, humanity's top military leader, called an emergency meeting. Of all senior officers, she was a small woman with sharp eyes and a mind that could see patterns others missed. "The Coalition is dying," she announced to the assembled commanders. "This void swarm has destroyed half their territory. They've tried everything they know, and it hasn't worked." "So they come to us," said Colonel Dongwu, a tactical genius who had never lost a battle. "The species they banned from their space now represents their last hope." "What do we know about this enemy?" asked Squadron Leader Sora, the best pilot in the human fleet. She was young, but had already earned the respect of every fighter pilot under her command. Admiral Jin Ho, an older man known for his unconventional strategies, pulled up a holographic display. "From what intelligence we've gathered, the swarm uses biotechnology, living ships that can heal themselves and adapt to different weapons. They consume matter to grow their fleet and spread across the galaxy like a disease." "The Coalition fights like they're still at peace," observed Chief. Engineer Boram, a brilliant woman who could build weapons from spare parts. They use energy shields and long-range weapons. They try to minimize casualties. They don't understand that sometimes you have to sacrifice everything to win. Fleet Commander Ye Jin nodded. That's exactly why they need us. We know how to fight. Dirty. We know how to take risks. We know how to do whatever it takes to win. Dr. Hiram, the fleet's chief scientist, spoke up. I've been studying the Coalition's reports about the swarm. Their bioships seem to be held together by some kind of exotic matter. If we could disrupt that, we might be able to destroy them more effectively than conventional weapons. What do you have in mind? Asked Admiral Jin Ho. Quantum cascade torpedoes. I've been working on the theory for years. A chain reaction that could break down the exotic matter at a molecular level. But it's never been tested. Fleet Commander Ye Jin made her decision. We have 3 days to prepare. Admiral Jin Ho, you'll command the battle fleet. Colonel Dongwu, work with Dr. Hiram on these new weapons. Squadron Leader Sora, get our pilots ready for the fight of their lives. As the meeting ended, Chief Engineer Boram stayed behind to make final adjustments to the fleet's quantum drives. She had discovered a way to make them more efficient, allowing the ships to jump longer distances. It seemed like a small improvement, but she was proud of her work. She had no way of knowing that this simple modification would change the fate of the entire galaxy. The human fleet prepared to leave for Coalition space, carrying with them the hopes of both species. They were going to face an enemy that had destroyed the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. But they had something the Coalition lacked, the human understanding that sometimes, to save everything, you had to be willing to lose everything. The stars were dying, but humanity was coming to fight. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Nexus system, and Admiral Tae Min couldn't believe what he was seeing. The human ships looked nothing like proper warships. Where Coalition vessels were sleek and elegant, the human ships were blocky and aggressive. Where alien ships had smooth curves and artistic designs, human ships had sharp angles and weapon ports everywhere. The largest ship, Admiral Jin Ho's flagship called Iron Will, looked more like a flying fortress than a spaceship. Its hull was covered in armor plating and defensive turrets. Strange energy readings came from its engines, and its weapon systems were completely unfamiliar to Coalition sensors. "These are their advanced warships?" asked Taemin's tactical officer, sounding confused. "According to our scans, yes, sir. But their technology is so different from ours, we can barely understand how they work." Admiral Taemin opened a communication channel to the human flagship. The face that appeared on his screen was weathered and scarred, with eyes that had seen too many battles. This was Admiral Jin Ho, commander of humanity's war fleet. "Admiral Jin Ho, welcome to the Nexus system. I am Admiral Taemin of the Coalition Defense Force. We are grateful for your assistance in this desperate hour." Jin Ho's expression didn't change. "Admiral Taemin, we've reviewed your tactical reports about the Void Swarm. Your people have fought bravely, but you've been fighting the wrong kind of war." "What do you mean?" "You fight like you're trying to preserve something beautiful. We fight like we're trying to destroy something evil. Against an enemy like the Swarm, only one of those approaches will work." The next day, Admiral Jin Ho presented his battle plan to the combined Coalition commanders. The meeting was held aboard Taemin's flagship, in a conference room filled with representatives from dozens of different species. The air was thick with tension and the smell of fear. Jin Ho activated a holographic display showing the swarm's position. "The enemy has been moving in predictable patterns, consuming systems one by one. You've been trying to meet them head-on, with defensive formations. That's exactly what they expect." "What do you propose instead?" asked Commander Vextar of the Althari forces, his translator making his words sound mechanical. "We hit them where they don't expect it. Direct assault on their central hive nodes using coordinated kamikaze runs combined with our new quantum cascade torpedoes." The room erupted in shocked voices. Several Coalition officers stood up from their seats, their faces showing horror at the suggestion. "Kamikaze runs? You mean suicide attacks?" asked Admiral Taemin, unable to hide his disgust. "Sometimes soldiers die in war, Admiral. The question is whether they die for something or die for nothing. My plan gives us a chance to win." Dr. Hiram stepped forward, her arms full of data tablets. If I may explain the science, honored commanders, the swarm's bioships are held together by exotic matter that exists in a quantum state. Our cascade torpedoes create a chain reaction that disrupts this quantum field, causing the exotic matter to collapse. And if this chain reaction gets out of control? Asked the Corthan science advisor, his large eyes showing concern. The reaction is designed to be self-limiting. Each cascade pulse weakens over distance until it dies out naturally. Admiral Jin Ho continued his presentation. We divide our forces into 3 groups. The first group, led by Squadron Leader Sora, will make diversionary attacks to draw the swarm's attention. The second group, under Captain Han Sol, will deliver the cascade torpedoes to the hive nodes. The third group stays in reserve to exploit any breakthrough. This plan is madness, declared General Korthnall of the Valdric battle fleet. You're asking us to sacrifice hundreds of ships and thousands of lives on an untested weapon. I'm asking you to win a war, Jinho replied calmly. How many ships and lives will you lose if we do nothing? The debate continued for hours, but eventually, the coalition commanders agreed. They were desperate, and desperate times called for desperate measures. Captain Wu Jin was selected to lead the advanced scout mission. He was a quiet man with steady nerves, perfect for the dangerous job of gathering intelligence deep in enemy territory. His ship, the Silent Hunter, was equipped with the best stealth technology humanity could build. Wu Jin and his crew spent 2 days moving through swarm-controlled space, avoiding patrols and mapping enemy positions. What they discovered was worse than anyone had imagined. Admiral Jin Ho, you need to see this, Wu Jin reported over a secure channel. The swarm isn't just consuming matter for food. They're harvesting it for construction. There's something massive being built at the galaxy's edge. The image that came through the transmission showed a structure the size of a small moon, made entirely of the same biomaterial as the swarm ships. It was growing larger every day as more resources were fed into it. What do you think it is? Asked Dr. Highrim, studying the strange readings. I don't know, but we can't let them finish it, Jinho replied grimly. As the combined fleet prepared for battle, tensions grew between human and coalition forces. The humans moved with casual efficiency, checking weapons and making final preparations, as if they were going on a routine patrol. The coalition crews were nervous and frightened, unused to the reality of warfare. Squadron leader Sora walked through the fighter bays, talking to her pilots. They were all young, all brave, and all ready to die if necessary. The coalition pilots looked at them with a mixture of admiration and horror. You humans treat death so lightly, observed Lieutenant Vel Ara, an Althari pilot assigned to Sora's squadron. We don't treat it lightly, Sora replied, checking the weapons on her fighter. We just accept it. Death is part of war. The only question is whether your death means something. Chief Engineer Boram made final checks on the quantum drive modifications she had installed on every human ship. The new system would allow them to make micro-jumps during battle, giving them an advantage in mobility. She was proud of her innovation and confident it would help win the fight. Colonel Dongwu coordinated with coalition tactical officers, trying to teach them human battle doctrine in a few short days. It was frustrating work. The aliens thought in terms of minimum casualties and maximum preservation of resources. Humans thought in terms of mission success, regardless of cost. Your people don't understand, Dongwu explained to Admiral Taemin. War isn't about keeping your soldiers safe. It's about accomplishing your objectives. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is end a war quickly, even if it means more deaths in the short term. On the final night before battle, Admiral Jin Ho stood alone on his bridge looking out at the stars. Dr. Highrim joined him, carrying a tablet full of calculations. Second thoughts about the plan? She asked. No, but I keep thinking about what we're risking. If this goes wrong, it won't just be our fleet that's destroyed. The entire galaxy could fall to the swarm. If we don't try, the galaxy falls anyway. At least this way. We have a chance. Jinho nodded, but something nagged at the back of his mind. The quantum cascade weapons were new technology, untested in real battle conditions. Boram's drive modifications were also untested. They were combining too many unknown factors in a single battle plan, but they were out of time and out of options. The Void Swarm was moving toward the core worlds, and every day of delay meant more innocent lives lost. Sometimes commanders had to make decisions based on hope rather than certainty. The human fleet was ready to fight, ready to sacrifice, and ready to show the galaxy what humanity could do when everything was at stake. The emergency meeting took place on Admiral Taemin's flagship, now floating in empty space far from any star system. The surviving commanders from both human and coalition forces sat around a holographic display that showed the expanding cascade. The sphere of destruction had grown to consume 12 star systems, and it was accelerating. "How long do we have?" asked Admiral Taemin, his voice hollow with despair. Dr. Hiram looked up from her calculations, her eyes red from exhaustion and tears. "At current expansion rate, the cascade will reach the core worlds in 4 days. The outer colonies have, maybe 6 days. After that—" She didn't need to finish the sentence. Commander Vextar of the Althari forces slammed his fist on the table. "This is what comes from trusting humans with advanced weapons. Your recklessness has doomed us all." "Enough," said Admiral Jin Ho quietly, but his voice carried enough authority to silence the room. "Blame won't solve anything. We need solutions." "What? Solutions?" demanded General Korthnall. "You've created a weapon that consumes space itself. There is no defense against such a thing," Dr. Hiram spoke up hesitantly. "There might be one possibility. It's theoretical, and the odds of success are very small, but it's the only option I can think of." All eyes turned to her. She activated the holographic display, showing complex mathematical formulas that made the non-scientists in the room feel dizzy just looking at them. The cascade works by disrupting the quantum structure of normal matter and energy. But dark matter exists mostly outside our normal space-time continuum. In theory, a large enough dark matter explosion might create what we call a quantum firebreak, a region where the cascade cannot continue to expand. "Do we have access to dark matter weapons?" asked Admiral Taemin. Admiral Jin Ho nodded grimly. "Humanity has been experimenting with dark matter bombs for years. We have 12 prototype devices in our weapons storage, but they've never been tested. We don't even know if they'll work properly." "Even if they do work," continued Dr. Hiram, "someone would have to deliver them directly into the center of the cascade zone. The quantum distortions there are so severe that most forms of matter can't exist for more than a few seconds." "A suicide mission," observed Colonel Dongwu. "Yes, and even then, the mathematical probability of success is less than 15%. The room fell silent. They were asking someone to fly into a region of space where physics itself had broken down, carrying untested experimental weapons, with almost no chance of survival and very little chance of success. Fleet Commander Ye Jin, who had been listening quietly, finally spoke. "I'll lead the mission." "No," Admiral Jin Ho said immediately. "This is humanity's mistake. We should be the ones to fix it. With respect, Admiral, you're needed to coordinate the evacuation efforts. I'm the logical choice to lead the assault team." Admiral Taemin watched this exchange with growing amazement. Even facing the end of the galaxy, the humans were arguing about who got to sacrifice themselves. His own people were brave, but this was something beyond normal courage. "What about our colonies?" asked Captain Wu Jin, who had barely escaped the first cascade explosion. "Earth, Mars, the outer settlements. They're all going to be consumed by this thing." "We have refugee ships," replied Squadron Leader Sora. "If we can buy enough time, we might be able to evacuate some of the population to intergalactic space." "Some of the population," repeated General Korthnall bitterly. "Out of trillions of beings across hundreds of worlds, we might save a few thousand." Admiral Jin Ho stood up from his chair. "Then we better make sure those few thousand remember what happened here. They need to know that sometimes trying to do good can create terrible consequences. They need to know that with great power comes the responsibility to use it wisely." Over the next 18 hours, word of the disaster spread throughout the galaxy. Panic erupted on dozens of worlds as people realized that their entire civilization was about to be wiped out. Some planets descended into chaos and violence. Others saw remarkable displays of courage and selflessness as people helped each other prepare for the end. Chief Engineer Boram worked frantically to modify the dark matter bombs, trying to make them more stable for transport through the quantum distortions. She had barely slept since the cascade began, driven by guilt over her drive modifications that had made the disaster possible. "It's not your fault," Dr. Hiram told her during one of their brief rest breaks. My modifications caused the resonance effect. If I had been more careful, more thorough in my testing, we all made mistakes. I designed the Cascade torpedoes without considering all possible interactions. Admiral Jin Ho approved their use without enough testing. Colonel Dongwu ordered the massive simultaneous deployment. We all contributed to this disaster. Bo-Ram looked at the modified dark matter bombs. Will they work? I honestly don't know. The theoretical basis is sound, but we're dealing with forces beyond our normal understanding of physics. Meanwhile, Squadron Leader Sora was organizing the volunteer pilots for the mission. Almost every human pilot in the fleet had volunteered, along with many coalition pilots who felt honor-bound to help fix the problem. This isn't your responsibility, Sora told Lieutenant Vel Ara, the Althari pilot who had been assigned to her squadron. Yes, it is, the alien pilot replied. We asked you to save us from the swarm. The fact that your solution created a bigger problem doesn't change our obligation to help. Captain Wu Jin was selected to lead the advance scouts who would map safe passage through the outer edges of the Cascade Zone. His experience with stealth and reconnaissance made him the best choice for the dangerous job. As the volunteer fleet prepared for their final mission, messages began arriving from across the galaxy. Some were angry, blaming humanity for the disaster, but many more were messages of support and gratitude, thanking the humans for their willingness to sacrifice everything to fix their mistake. Admiral Tae-min recorded his own message to be transmitted throughout Coalition space. The humans came to us in our darkest hour and offered their help. Their solution failed in ways none of us could have predicted. Now they prepare to give their lives trying to undo the damage. Whatever else history may say about this crisis, let it record that humanity tried to do right by the galaxy, even at the cost of their own existence. Fleet Commander Ye Jin gathered the volunteer crews in the main hangar bay of Admiral Jin Ho's flagship. The space was packed with humans and aliens, all people who had volunteered for a mission they knew they wouldn't survive. I won't lie to you, she addressed the crowd. Our chances of success are very small. Most of us won't come back. But if we don't try, everyone dies anyway. At least this way we have a chance to save something. She paused, looking out at the faces of brave beings from dozens of different worlds. If we succeed, the survivors will rebuild. They'll remember this day and hopefully learn from our mistakes. If we fail, at least we'll fail trying to do the right thing. Admiral Jin Ho had decided to personally pilot the lead ship carrying the dark matter bombs. As the mission commander, he felt responsible for seeing it through to the end. Sir, you don't have to do this, Colonel Dongwu said as they prepared to board their ships. Yes, I do. I gave the order to use those weapons. I have to be the one to try to stop what they created. As the volunteer fleet prepared to launch, long-range sensors detected something unexpected. The Cascade had reached a region of space where fragments of destroyed swarm bioships were still drifting. Instead of being consumed like normal matter, some of these fragments seemed to be partially resisting the quantum dissolution. Dr. Hiram studied the sensor readings with growing excitement. The swarm's exotic matter composition allows parts of their ships to exist partially outside normal space-time. That's why they're not being completely destroyed by the Cascade. What does that mean? Asked Admiral Jin Ho. It means the enemy we fought so hard to destroy might be the key to stopping the Cascade. If we can somehow combine their exotic matter technology with our dark matter bombs. It was a desperate plan built on desperation, using the technology of their former enemies to try to save the galaxy. But it was the only chance they had. The volunteer fleet launched into the expanding sphere of destruction, carrying with them the last hope of every living being in the galaxy. The battle began at dawn. Ship time. Squadron leader Sora led the first wave of human fighters into the heart of the Void Swarm territory. Her ships moved like angry wasps, darting between the massive bioships and striking at weak points with precision weapons. The Coalition pilots tried to follow her lead, but couldn't match the humans' reckless courage or natural instinct for three-dimensional combat. Target the neural clusters, Sora commanded over the communication system. Don't worry about the big ships yet. We need to blind them first. Her fighters dove through swarms of smaller void creatures, their weapons blazing. The human ships were faster and more maneuverable than anything the swarm had faced before. They twisted and turned through space like they were flying through atmosphere, using every trick humans had learned from centuries of aerial combat. The swarm bioships tried to respond, but their weapons were designed for the predictable movements of coalition fleets. The human fighters were too chaotic, too unpredictable. They attacked from impossible angles and disappeared before the enemy could lock onto them. On his flagship, Admiral Jin Ho watched the tactical display with satisfaction. Phase 1 is working. The swarm is confused and off balance. Captain Han Sol, begin your attack run! Captain Han Sol's heavy cruisers moved into position, their hulls loaded with Dr. High Rim's experimental quantum cascade torpedoes. These weapons had never been used in real combat, but the theory was sound. The exotic matter that held the swarm ships together should collapse when exposed to the quantum field disruption. All ships, target the primary hive nodes. Han Sol ordered. Fire on my mark! The first cascade torpedo struck a swarm bioship the size of a city. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the ship began to glow with strange energy as its exotic matter structure started to break down. The bioship writhed like a living thing in pain before finally exploding in a burst of green light. Direct hit, reported Han Sol's weapons officer. The cascade effect is working better than expected. More torpedoes found their targets. Swarm bioships that had seemed invincible began dying in spectacular explosions. The quantum cascades spread from ship to ship, creating chain reactions that destroyed entire formations of enemy vessels. Admiral Taemin watched from his coalition flagship in amazement. Incredible! The humans have found a way to turn the swarm's greatest strength into a weakness. The tide of battle began to turn. For the first time in 3 years of war, the Void Swarm was retreating. Their bioships pulled back from the advancing human fleet, trying to regroup and adapt to this new threat. But in the engineering sections of the human ships, something was going wrong. Chief Engineer Bo Ram noticed strange readings from the quantum drive systems. Her modifications were working perfectly, allowing the ships to make micro-jumps during battle. However, the drives were creating an unexpected resonance effect with the cascade torpedoes. Dr. High Rim, I'm seeing some unusual quantum field interactions, Bo Ram reported over the internal communication system. Dr. High Rim was busy coordinating the torpedo attacks and didn't immediately understand the significance. Can you be more specific? We're in the middle of a battle here. The quantum drives are amplifying the cascade effects. Each explosion is slightly stronger than it should be. How much stronger? About 12% increase in field strength per detonation. Dr. High Rim felt a cold chill run through her body. If the cascade effects were being amplified, that meant they might not be self-limiting as she had calculated. The chain reactions could potentially grow stronger instead of weaker over distance. She ran quick calculations on her portable computer, her hands shaking as she input the new variables. The results made her blood freeze. If the amplification effect continued, the cascade reactions would reach critical resonance within minutes. Captain Han Sol, cease fire immediately, she shouted into her communicator. All ships stop using cascade torpedoes. But the communication system was overloaded with battle chatter. Her message was lost in dozens of other voices reporting targets, requesting ammunition, and coordinating attacks. Colonel Dong Wu, seeing what appeared to be total victory within reach, ordered the deployment of the fleet's entire remaining arsenal of cascade weapons. All ships, fire everything we have. Let's finish these monsters once and for all. 100 cascade torpedoes launched simultaneously, more than had ever been used in a single battle. They struck the retreating swarm fleet in a devastating display of firepower. Bioships exploded in chains of green light that lit up the entire star system. That was when the quantum fields reached critical resonance. Instead of individual explosions, the cascade effects began to merge and amplify each other. The green light grew brighter and brighter until it hurt to look at. Space itself seemed to bend and twist around the expanding energy field. Captain Wu Jin, monitoring the battle from his scout ship at the edge of the system, was the first to realize what was happening. All ships, emergency jump to hyperspace. The cascade is out of control. Admiral Jin Ho saw the readings on his tactical display and felt his heart stop. The quantum cascade wasn't dissipating as it should. Instead, it was growing stronger and spreading outward from the battle zone like a wave of destruction. Dr. High Rim, report. What's happening to our weapons? "The quantum resonance has reached critical threshold," she replied, her voice filled with horror. "The cascade is now self-sustaining. It's going to keep expanding until—" Until what? Until there's nothing left to consume. Admiral Tae-min watched from his coalition flagship as the expanding wave of destruction approached his position. The cascade effect was consuming everything in its path: swarm bioships, human cruisers, space debris, even the cosmic dust between stars. It was like watching the universe itself being erased. "All coalition ships, jump to hyperspace immediately," he ordered. "Emergency evacuation of the system." The surviving ships began jumping away from the expanding cascade, but many were too slow or too damaged to escape. Human and coalition vessels alike disappeared into the growing sphere of destructive energy. Squadron leader Sora managed to get most of her fighters to safety, but she watched helplessly as some of her pilots were caught by the expanding field. Their ships simply ceased to exist, consumed by the quantum cascade they had helped create. Captain Hansol tried desperately to reach the edge of the system, but his heavy cruiser was too slow. The cascade wave overtook his ship, and the last thing he transmitted was a simple message: "Tell them we tried to do good." Admiral Jin-ho stood on his bridge as the Iron Will fled toward the hyperspace jump point. Behind them, the cascade continued to expand, consuming the entire Nexus system. Planets, moons, and the system's star itself were all being devoured by the runaway quantum reaction. "Estimated expansion rate?" he asked Dr. Hiram. "At current acceleration, the cascade will reach the core worlds within days. It won't stop there, Admiral. The mathematical models show it will continue expanding until it consumes the entire galaxy." The weapon that was supposed to save civilization had instead doomed it. Humanity's greatest military victory had become the galaxy's greatest disaster. The void swarm was gone, but so was everything else in an ever-growing sphere of absolute destruction. As the surviving ships jumped to hyperspace, they carried with them the terrible knowledge that they had only days to find a solution before. Every living thing in the galaxy was consumed by their own weapon. The cascade continued to grow, an unstoppable wave of annihilation spreading through space at the speed of light. Stars winked out one by one as the destructive field reached them, leaving only empty darkness behind. Admiral Jin-ho closed his eyes and tried not to think about the billions of innocent people who were about to die because of his decision to use untested weapons in a desperate battle. The humans had saved the galaxy from the void swarm, but they had also condemned it to an even worse fate. The stars were not just dying now, they were being erased from existence itself, and there seemed to be no way to stop it. The volunteer fleet entered the cascade zone like ships sailing into hell itself. Admiral Jin-ho watched from his command chair as reality began to break down around them. His ship, the Eternal Hope, shuddered as quantum distortions twisted space and time. Through the viewports, he could see other ships in his fleet aging decades in seconds, while others seemed frozen in temporal loops. "Navigation is impossible, sir," reported his helmsman, a young man whose hair had turned white from the stress. "The quantum fields are interfering with all our instruments." "Use visual navigation," Jin-ho ordered. "Follow the trail of destroyed matter toward the center of the cascade. That's where we need to go." Captain Wu Jin's scout ships led the way, mapping safe passages through the chaos. His stealth technology helped protect his ship from the worst effects, but even he was struggling to maintain course through the quantum storms. "Admiral, I'm detecting something impossible ahead," Wu Jin reported over the communication system. "There are intact structures in the cascade zone, bioships from the swarm that are somehow still functioning." Dr. Hiram, monitoring from the science vessel Quantum Dawn, felt her heart race with excitement. "That confirms our theory. The swarm's exotic matter allows them to partially exist outside normal space-time. They're not completely immune to the cascade, but they can survive longer than conventional matter." Squadron leader Sora's fighters moved ahead to investigate the swarm fragments. What she found changed everything. The bioships weren't just surviving, they were trying to contain the cascade using their own exotic matter fields. "Admiral, you need to see this," she transmitted. "The swarm ships are working together, creating some kind of barrier around the cascade's center. It's like they're trying to stop it too." Admiral Jin-ho stared at the tactical display in disbelief. The Void Swarm, humanity's greatest enemy, was fighting the same battle they were. The cascade threatened all existence, including the swarm's own strange form of life. Chief Engineer Boram worked frantically in the engineering bay, trying to adapt their dark matter bombs to work with swarm biotechnology. The exotic matter, samples they had collected, were unlike anything she had ever seen. They seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once, responding to her modifications in ways that defied normal physics. "Dr. Hiram, I think I can create a hybrid device," Boram reported over the internal communication system. "Part human dark matter bomb, part swarm exotic matter processor, but I need to be closer to their bioships to complete the integration." "How?" "Much closer?" asked Admiral Jinho. "We need to dock with one of their ships. I need direct access to their exotic matter systems." The idea of boarding an enemy vessel in the middle of a quantum cascade zone seemed impossible, but they were already attempting the impossible. Admiral Jinho ordered his ship to approach the largest intact swarm bioship. As they drew near, something unexpected happened. The bioship opened docking ports and extended what looked like an invitation to board. The swarm was offering to cooperate. Colonel Dongwu led a boarding party onto the alien vessel, wearing protective suits designed to shield them from exotic matter radiation. What they found inside was beyond their imagination. The ship was alive in ways human technology had never achieved. Walls pulsed like heartbeats, and the air itself seemed to think. But more importantly, they found swarm entities that were still alive. These beings, which had seemed like mindless destroyers during the war, showed clear signs of intelligence and even emotion. They were afraid. The cascade was destroying their kind just as surely as it destroyed everything else. Through a combination of mathematics, basic communication symbols, and shared desperation, the humans and swarm entities began working together. Boram connected her modified dark matter bombs to the ship's exotic matter core, creating a device that existed partially in normal space and partially in dimensions humans couldn't even perceive. "The hybrid device is ready," she reported to Admiral Jinho. "But deploying it requires someone to manually pilot it into the exact center of the cascade origin point. The quantum distortions there are so severe that remote control is impossible." Admiral Jinho knew what that meant. Someone had to fly directly into the heart of the cascade, where reality itself was torn apart, and manually detonate the hybrid weapon. It was not just a suicide mission. It was a journey into a place where existence itself had no meaning. "I'll take it," he said simply. Dr. Hiram looked up from her calculations with tears in her eyes. "Admiral, even if the device works perfectly, the explosion will be visible from anywhere in the galaxy. You'll become part of the quantum scar that stops the cascade. You won't just die. You'll be erased from reality itself." "Then make sure people remember why," Jinho replied. "Make sure they know that sometimes the greatest heroism comes from trying to fix your greatest mistakes." The final approach to the Cascade Center took 6 hours. Admiral Jinho piloted a specially modified fighter carrying the hybrid weapon, while the rest of the fleet pulled back to what they hoped was a safe distance. The quantum distortions grew worse with every kilometer, until he was flying through a region where cause and effect had broken down. His ship aged centuries in minutes, then reversed back to its original state. He experienced the same battle a dozen times in different ways, as temporal loops created by the cascade made reality repeat itself. Through it all, he kept flying toward the center, guided by instruments that shouldn't have worked and willpower that refused to surrender. Captain Wu Jin, monitoring from the edge of the zone, watched Jinho's progress on sensors that were more theory than fact. "He's reached the origin point. All ships, prepare for quantum detonation." Admiral Jinho found himself at the center of the cascade, where the original quantum resonance had begun. Here, space itself was a wound that wouldn't heal, constantly growing larger and consuming everything around it. The hybrid weapon in his ship was the only thing that might be able to close that wound. He activated the device with a simple message transmitted to the galaxy. "Humanity's last gift. May it be better than our first." The explosion was unlike anything that had ever existed. It combined the reality-altering properties of dark matter with the multi-dimensional existence of swarm exotic matter. Instead of creating more destruction, it created a permanent scar in space-time itself, a region where nothing could exist, but which also couldn't expand any further. The cascade stopped. Fleet Commander Ye Jin led the surviving ships out of the quantum zone to find a galaxy forever changed. The cascade had consumed 23 star systems completely, leaving behind only empty space. Billions were dead, entire species had been wiped out, and vast regions of the galaxy were now uninhabitable. But life endured. The coalition worlds that had survived began the long process of rebuilding. Refugee ships carried the scattered remnants of destroyed civilizations to new homes. The swarm entities that had survived the cascade revealed themselves to be intelligent, beings who had been driven to consume other life by a genetic compulsion they couldn't control. With their hive minds damaged by the cascade, individual swarm beings were able to think freely for the first time. Captain Han Sol, who had somehow survived the initial cascade explosion, established the first human memorial station at the edge of the quantum scar. It was a place where future generations could come to remember the price of good intentions combined with insufficient wisdom. The memorial bore a simple inscription: "Here lies Admiral Jin Ho and all who died trying to fix what they had broken. May we learn from their sacrifice that the greatest power requires the greatest responsibility." Dr. Hai Rim, now the galaxy's leading expert on quantum cascade theory, devoted her remaining years to ensuring that such weapons could never be built again. She developed detection systems that could identify dangerous quantum resonance patterns and warning protocols that might prevent future disasters. Squadron Leader Sora became the leader of the new Galactic Peace Corps, an organization dedicated to preventing conflicts before they required military solutions. She often told new recruits, "We fight so that others don't have to. We remember so that mistakes aren't repeated." The quantum scar itself became a permanent reminder of the battle. It was visible from anywhere in the galaxy as a region of absolute darkness where stars should have been. Some called it the human wound, others the scar of salvation. But everyone who looked at it remembered the species that had almost destroyed the galaxy and then died to save it. Years later, as new civilizations arose and the galaxy slowly healed, historians would debate whether humanity's actions had been heroic or catastrophic. The answer, most concluded, was both. The humans had shown that the line between salvation and destruction was thinner than anyone had imagined. The stars still shone, though fewer than before. Life continued, though scarred by memory. And in the darkness of the quantum scar, where Admiral Jin Ho had made his final sacrifice, space itself remembered the lesson that good intentions without wisdom could doom a galaxy. But the willingness to accept responsibility for one's mistakes could still save it. The galaxy survived, forever changed, carrying the knowledge that humanity's greatest victory and greatest failure had been the same moment. It was a lesson written in the stars, themselves impossible to